Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a really interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the WE Zizzit, or at least that's how I'm going to pronounce it. This looks, at first glance, like another sort of basic WE design. But I want to say this before we even get going here. This has the magic sauce. And by the magic sauce, I mean this is one of those knives that WE has produced recently that is clearly higher quality than what they have produced over the last, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It also has a lot of really, really cool details that I don't think enough people are aware of. And I really can't wait to share this with you guys because I'm a huge fan of this knife. Thanks so much to WE for sending it in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. I will link this knife down in the description. There's a few retailers that still have some of these left. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and measure it. Number one, this is a much bigger knife than I ever would have guessed at 8.75 inches. Blade length, 3.75. Cutting edge, just about 3.5, about 3.35. Let's do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. Look at this thing up against the 8010. I think people see pictures of this thing and they think that it's like 7 3/4 inches or 7.5 inches. No, it's huge. It's not quite as thick, but it's definitely a big knife. Absolutely. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Once again, it's big, and it's definitely showing it here up against the PM2, especially. And then finally up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. All right, you guys get it. How's the action? It's a button lock flipper. Oh, is it the Ziphius? Yeah. I made a note there, and this was confirmed by tons of people who also picked that knife up. That thing flips and feels different than any other button lock on the market. And it had I forget the name of the brother, right? But I think you guys know the one that I am referring to. This has that extra, whatever that is, that magic sauce that makes this button lock feel better. Wow, it feels so good. I'm sure some of you might be catching that. There's a little bit of metallic reverberation in this. Let me get it with the thumb stud. Oh, that is wonderful. The the action is absolutely absurd. This is one of those knives where I'd be willing to bet the vast majority of people saying, yeah, it looks kind of basic. Like, how good could the action feel? I would venture at 99 out of 100 people, you might get one saucy Sambo, but 99 out of 100 people would go, oh my gosh, wow. It really is different. That weight of the blade, the fact that the detent is somehow actually good on a plunge lock. I mean, it's an actual plunge lock that's creating the detent, and it feels excellent. Oh my gosh, the thumb stud action is just wonderful. Really, really good. That's one of the major highlights there. That action is superior. Along with the Ziphius and that other model that we produced, it's superior to pretty much any other, actual plunge lock knife that I've felt. I don't know what you guys are doing, but it's good. I like this, right? Yeah, I really, really want to emphasize that. It is really, it's difficult to sort of explain why the action feels different. I guess the break right here, this is traditionally a spot on a plunge lock where it feels a little crunchy or a little slippy because it's not actually a detent ball and a detent hole. This has a distinct break and click when it slaps into the open position. Slaps was the right word to use there. But also just the cherry on top of that metallic reverberation, right? The release of the lock also feels incredibly crisp, where in a lot of cases, other plunge locks feel a little crunchy or like they're not sure whether or not they're ready to disengage. This feels finely tuned. Really, really cool. Huge fan of the action on this knife. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. Yeah, it's really not all that thick. Maybe just slightly thicker than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is still a big knife, though. It is, I don't think anybody's going to define that as a small knife, but it's pretty tall as well. So you're not really carrying anything massively thick. It's just a large object. So some people might have a bit of an issue with that depending on what they're used to carrying and what type of pants they're wearing that day. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel or the pinned comment. Most likely looking at a T8 across the board here. Yeah, so we have a lot of screws here, and that's because these we have one for the frame, but then we also have screws that are screwing the inlays into the titanium. Now, fortunately, it doesn't look like you really need to take these off. In fact, yeah, this is not the case there. We have 2 screws to release this scale along with the pivot, and then we have the same thing over here, which is fantastic. And these are actually T8 for the pocket clip. Yeah, but these back here, am I wrong? Oh, we better check those. One of them is actually a little bit bigger. I think the body screws are actually still T8. Yeah, I'm glad I checked it. These inlay screws are definitely smaller and definitely T6. So it actually should be pretty easy to take apart. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and weigh it. What are we looking at for materials? It really depends on which version you get. This version is titanium, and then we have like a fat carbon or a marble, and maybe a shred. I think it actually looks a little bit shredded, but I guess it just depends on what it says in the actual listing there. But they also have like a black version with a different material. They have like an aluminum carbon fiber mascus, which I actually think looks really cool. It just really depends on which version you get. Either way, it's going to be CPM 20 CV, and the uncoated ones are going to be hardened to 59 to 61. I wish that was a bit higher, but you can't always get what you want. The uncoated ones will be hardened anywhere from 58 to 60, which in my opinion is just flat out too low. But that I guess can be a little subjective, so think about that however you will. Let's go ahead and weigh it here. This particular version, the scale's been great, but it doesn't default. Oh yeah, no, it did. That's the first time it's done that. I went right back to pounds and ounces. So anyways, 5.2 ounces. So definitely on the heavier side, considering it is a, what do we say, 3.75 inch blade roughly. But the balance is actually right behind the pivot. So it doesn't really feel as heavy given how large an object it is. Obviously, it feels heavier than something like a mini bug out, but when a knife is balanced, it definitely can make it feel a lot lighter than it actually is, so I appreciate that. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness here, and then we can move on into the rest of the review. Blade stock thickness on this guy coming in at 122 thousandths, so not super duper thick. All right, meat and potatoes time. I got to go over these details because I think a lot of people are going to look at that listing and they're going to go, oh my gosh, it's just titanium carbon fiber and 20 CV. Why is it so expensive? This knife has a lot of additional details that I really, really like. Some people are not going to like the fact that these inlays are screwed in. The alternative would be adhesive, which in my opinion is not a good idea. Sometimes hidden hardware works, but they would have to like thread the carbon fiber with something that could accept the screws and go in from underneath, so that wouldn't work. What I like is that they chose to sort of match the screw color or the fastener color with like the pivot and with this sort of outlining area, or this, what do we call this? It's just like a milling line that's been anodized, and that actually makes it look pretty cool. Still, I know that people are still going to be like, yeah, but the screws are kind of a distraction. I don't know. Personally, I don't really mind it. I think it looks pretty cool. I like seeing the matching hardware. It looks like a lot of screws, right? But in terms of like what's required to disassemble it, it's really not that much. I love the pivot here. I got to looking at this in the unboxing, and what we have is a bowled out pivot, meaning it's like indented here. And the center of the pivot has been anodized kind of like a denim blue. The outer bevel of the first outer bevel is actually a satin, and then the pivot collar is a polished blue, which is really nice. On top of that, we have this beautiful texturing with the titanium. And again, I love that line there separating the titanium and the carbon fiber and how it's blue. It's just really, really cool. I also really like the pocket clip. Just a little extra here, anodizing the WE logo into the bill of the clip. Got 3 holes there. I don't know what those are for, but okay. Just really cool. On top of that, we have a compound blade that is not a simple belt satin or machine satin finish. I am sick of that. Thank you so much. I think they list this as glass blasted or something like that. It looks so good. It almost looks like it has a texture. And there's a part of me that thought that this might have actually been an orange peeled blade, but they're just marks. There's no feeling of texturing or anything like that. That's just how that looks. And it looks so clean, and it looks so much higher quality than just the basic satin finish. I love that. This is also very thin on this initial edge because it is hollow ground and then flat out here, meaning that this knife really can slice. And you can choke up here. We've got functional jimping that's actually complementing the index finger position. This is a super comfortable knife to hold, super comfortable knife to use, and super comfortable knife to manipulate. I do have to warn you guys, a couple of times I've just barely gotten my fingers out of the way. This knife is so smooth, and the blade is big enough and sharp enough behind the edge that it's a little bit scary. There's just a lot of weight coming down, so you really got to make sure and get your fingers out of the way. Obviously, you can accidentally cut yourself with pretty much any knife. This one I really feel like would do a little bit more damage. It is so smooth and so quick to drop. You really got to make sure you got your fingers out of the way. But really, really nice. This is the type of stuff that I like to see from WE when they're charging more than your $225, $250 zone, right? If you're going to get up there into the $300 territory, which this is right there on that line, then I like to see something extra. It's not just the finish. It's not just the design, the texturing, right? Or the action. It's all of those things combined that make this feel superior versus things that WE has generally been releasing over the last 5 years. They've gotten better and better and better and better, and a couple of models have really stood out, right? Including the Ziphius, the Cybernetic, and the GTC collab, the Solid. Wow! But I'm gonna toss this one in there. This is clearly being made with the same. The same sauce, right? The same magic stuff. And I really hope that this is just like going to be across the board. I really enjoy what they're doing. I'm a little disappointed that this did not have some cool, super shiny blue backspacer. That really would have tied it off if they had done a titanium backspacer. Maybe, I don't know, put like a fuller in it. They have polished it. It really would have tied this off. But unfortunately, they just did a couple of standoffs, and it's kind of a bummer, But what are you going to do? The other thing that's kind of a bummer is that there's no lefty mounting position for the pocket clip. This is right-handed only, so that's kind of a bummer. Lefties, they didn't give you a spot for your pocket clip. There's a lanyard bar back here. Whoop-de-doo. The pocket clip is milled titanium. Like I said, I like it in and out of the pocket. It's great. It is sitting right on top of the texturing. That'll fray your pocket up over time, but it's really not that bad. As far as the texturing goes, it is grippy enough to create meaningful traction on your palm. It's not like, it's not throughout, but you can feel it, and it definitely does have lock-in. I need to emphasize again how comfortable this knife is. The edges are they're like nearly radiused. It is really, really comfortable to hold this knife. Choking up on this knife when you're right-handed, right, you have no chance of disengaging the lock because no finger naturally lands on top of the button. In the standard hammer grip, not choking up, same thing if you're right-handed. If you're left-handed, standard hammer grip, you're good to go. Up here, your pad, I guess, on your finger does land on top of that button. I think it would be pretty hard to do, but technically possible, so watch out for that. But truthfully, either way, whether you're right-handed, left-handed, this is just a beautifully comfortable knife to hang on to. I would have also loved to see exactly this, but contoured, but that definitely would have been pricey. If they had done a backspacer and they had contoured this, oh my gosh, it would have been absolutely magnificent, but it would have absolutely cost more money. And to emphasize this again, to newer people especially, the difference between flat milled titanium scales and contoured milled titanium scales, right? It's kind of like domed, I guess. There's a huge difference there. That the machines required to do that with titanium are super expensive, right? And the cost of operating them continuously also very, very expensive. So you should expect a reasonable bump up in price if that's the case. So the fact that this is already expensive to do, I'm not sure that people would have loved to see the price tag associated with that, but man, that would have just made for a super excellent knife. Lockout on this guy. There's a stop pin right here. Tons of shouldering there. That's great. It does run on bearings. That's probably obvious. Absolutely zero blade play up, down, left to right. Just a hint of stick, which is actually pretty common with button lock knives. Nothing bad. I'm sure it'll work itself out over time. No pivot lash whatsoever. I never expect to feel pivot lash with WE. Perfectly consistent action. Absolutely perfect. And an amazing detent considering it's a plunge lock. Absolutely wild. And then we also have perfect centering with no detent lash, which again is pretty rare for a plunge lock. I love this knife, and I feel like it's going to fly under the radar for a lot of people. I know that so many people are going to look at a Blade HQ listing of this knife and just wave it off as just some thoughtless design by WE, but it is so much more than that. I think this is an absolutely incredible product. The price tag is just going to be a little bit too high for some people. And, you know, some people honestly are just not going to like the simplicity of it. If you're going to spend $300, some people just want a little bit more personality in their knife. And that's understandable. It's also super subjective. I think a lot of people aren't going to like the look of the screws here. That's also fine. But realistically, what they did here for a starting price of $290, it's either $285 or $290. The one you're seeing here is about $305. I'm not upset about that. I've always said, you know, banging your head against the wall and screaming at a company to lower their prices is going to do nothing. Nothing. That will do nothing. You are wasting your time. What we should ask for is more effort in the designs. Hey, if you're going to charge us more money, give us more cool stuff, right? Put some more effort into the finishes. Put some more effort into the designs. More milling. More, you know, just more. Right? Do some more machining. Be a little bit more creative with that. And I feel like with a lot of what WE has done over the years, because I've definitely been screaming, you know, like, stop giving me super boring designs, just flat titanium and M390, calling it minimalist and charging me $250, $300. I've definitely complained about that over the years. And from my perspective, as somebody who handles an absolute butt ton of WE knives, they have definitely been bringing more sauce. And this new, I don't know if it's a new manufacturing process or if they just have a bunch of new machines, that also is really like setting off the senses, like all the, you know, the green check marks and the like all the little positive bells and everything go off in your head. It really feels good. This feels like a $300 knife to me. So I'm really happy about that. I hope that WE continues to you know, bring this type of stuff, you know, at these price points. I'm really, really happy that we seem to be moving out of the minimalist era of the knife world. Oh my God, that was so annoying. It was like for 2 or 3 years, every company was releasing their own minimalist design. And it was like, look, we made a flat rectangle with a drop point blade. It is a minimalist design because we are a stylish company and you are obviously a stylish consumer. Please buy our basic product. That will be $400. I am so happy that we seem to be moving away from that because that really sucked. I do like this. I mean, I think a lot of people might describe this as kind of a plain Jane knife, but I feel like there's a lot more here than people initially realized. So you can make up your mind for yourself. I will link this down in the description. Generally speaking, though, I do recommend this knife if you're going to be shopping at this price point, right? If you're just looking for a basic utilitarian folder, obviously this isn't what you should be looking at. I would recommend the $50 territory. You can check out lots of knives at that price point by checking out my Cheap Knives I Like playlist, which has literally over 200 uploads consisting of knives that cost less than $75. But anyways, at this price point, yes, I do recommend this. It's very cool. That's going to be it today, guys. Thanks again to WE for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at the_metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.